So this is one of the books I got Christmas year. Doctor Who Time Lord Fairy Tale. I freaking love Doctor Who. This is the same colour as the TARDIS. Like, you can't really see the colour. That's probably closest you can get to it in this shade colour. And it's the exact same colour as the TARDIS necklace I have. Such a dork, aren't I? Okay. Anyway, here's the content. Chapter 1. The Garden of Statues. Sounds like Weeping Angels to me, but also sounds like the fairy tale The Secret Garden. Frozen Beauty. Sounds like Sleeping Beauty. Cinderella and the Magic Box. Sounds like Cinderella. Or Pandora and her Pandora's box. Though technically that was a jar. Hi. The Twins in the Wood. Chapter 4. Sounds like Hansel and Gretel to me. The Three Little Sontarans. Sounds like the Three Little Pigs or the Three Blind Mice. Jack and the Wormhole. Jack and the Beanstalk. Snow White and the Seven Keys to Doomsday. To Doomsday? Sounds like Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Little Rose Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood. The Gingerbread Trap. The Gingerbread Man. The Scruffy Piper. The Pied Piper. Helena and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast. Apadea and the Fool Slytherin. Don't know how to pronounce either of those words. That's what was his name in the 40 thieves, I think it was. The Grief Collector, not the Fairy Tale, but the Bone Collector. Three Brothers Gruff. Three Billy Goats Gruff. Swiggin and the Green Knight. Now, confused with that one, so I decided to read the first page of it because I was heavily confused. Give me a sec. Where is it? Right. There we go. Once upon a time, many thousands of years past, a king named Hafer ruled the land of something or other. He was an honorable and fair king. Every month on the day the moon was new, he held a council of the greatest and bravest lords and knights of the realm and sought their service and wisdom. Sounds like King... Was it Peter? And the Knights of the Round Table? Is that his name? I don't know. I don't remember. So yeah, basically your classic fairy tales with the Galactan Time Lord twist. There we go. Much better word. Here's the blurb. We are all stories in the end. 15 tales of ancient wonder and mystery passed down from the generations of Time Lords. Dark, beautiful, and twisted, these stories are filled with nightmarish terrors and heroic triumphs from across all time and space. Also, read the first story, which is Garden of Statues. It is indeed Weeping Angels, as seen in this. You literally started my new favorite book with my least favorite characters, with the ones that give me the most nightmares. And I was reading this in the middle of the night. I am a stupid human being. It's on how I knew it from the start.
Okay, so you know how people say try your best?
Mm-hmm.
Like, try your best at doing what you love. What happens if you love being a criminal? And you try your best at being a criminal.
Is this related to anything at all?
No, try your best at doing what you love? What happens if you love being a criminal? Just try your best at being a criminal.
Like, each person is individual. I don't know how you find that funny, though. Now, as seen here, Sleeping Beauty is obviously, Frozen Beauty is obviously Sleeping Beauty, or Snow White. You see, from that coffin-like thing, I'd be guessing Snow White. It's Frozen Beauty, and so the title sounds like Sleeping Beauty. Anyway, let's read where I'm up to, which is not quite there. Halfway through this story, I think. I've forgotten where I was up to in the story, so let's reread the whole story. Once upon a time, long before Voitrix drives and time capsules were even thought of, journey through space took a very long time indeed. Let me just, much better. The distance between worlds was not measured in days or weeks, not in months or even years, but in centuries. That's what's a very long time. Some ships, like the Great Leviathan fleet, were whole worlds in themselves. People lived, grew old, and died in artificial habitats on board these ships. Their children lived, grew old, and died. So did their children's children. Generations later, the ships would reach their new worlds. But on most ships, the crew and passengers slept for centuries. It took to reach their destination. So it was on the Stellarfire, the most advanced ship of its age, the pride of the fleet of culinary vessels. The Stellarfire's captain was renowned for her courage and skills, was held one of the very best officers anywhere in the spaceship. This was perhaps why she was given command of its finest and fastest ship. She was proud of her command as her crew. She was as proud of her command as her crew was to work for her. But even the most advanced and prized starships encountered problems. The Stellarfire was just 50 years into her voyage, so halfway, skirting the frontier worlds of the Andromeda system when her engines misphased and the ship crashed into a small uncharted planet. Sorry about that. All contact was lost with the main computers. The systems were designed to wake the crew in an emergency. The systems. We're not being able to read things properly. The systems that were designed to wake the crew in an emergency failed, and the sleepers slept on. That might have been the end of the story, but for one thing, the captain of the Stellarfire had a brother. When the ship had started its journey, he was no one special, just a young man imaginally proud of his sister's reputation and achievement. But 50 years later, in his twilight years, however you want to pronounce that name, had come before one of the richest men in the galaxy, in any galaxy, come to that. When he learned that all contact had been lost with his sister's ship, he immediately organized a rescue mission. He did not know what had happened to the Stellarfire, and he had no clue as to whether or not his sister had survived. Deep down, he had always understood that he would never be able to see her again. But in spite of that, she was still his sister, and he loved her dearly. As he felt his heart could not rest if he did not at least try to find her. The crew of the rescue ship slept in cryonic caskets for most of their journey, but as the Stellarfire's crew had done, the captain of the rescue ship had been chosen for his determination and energy as much as his skill and experience. He was young, but he was already one with the most experienced officers in the fleet. He had piloted around the ship around the horns of Argula and made the Neverl run a record 5 times. One of the reasons this captain was so successful was that he always ensured he understood his ship. He made sure he knew its strengths and also its limitations, where he could trust the technology and where he needed to keep a close watch on it. He trusted the ship's systems to scan every planet close to where the Stellarfire had vanished. He trusted the system to wake him when they found something, or if they ever found something. If not, he might well sleep forever. Back on the captain's home world, time had passed, and all the while he slept in his ship searching. Yep, that grew old and died. So the brother of the Stellarfire's captain grew old and died. Slowly, the fate of the Stellarfire and of the ship sent to find her faded from memory and into legend. It was another 100 years before the rescue ship's detectives found any trace, just a tiny suggestion of what might be the remains of the Stellarfire. The rescue ship's captain was awoken. He blinked the ice off his eyes and felt the frost slowly melt from his cheeks. He yawned and stretched and set in motion a sequence that would revive the rest of his crew. A glance at the instruments was enough to convince them that they had indeed found what they were looking for, the Stellarfire. But would anyone have survived the crash? The ship lowered itself through the atmosphere towards the small, unsurveyed planet. The world was covered in dense forest, and the nearest clearing in which the ship would be put down was several miles from the crashed remains of the Stellarfire. The darkness was thickly wooded planet seemed safe enough, and it would have been if that was all that awaited them outside their ship. Interesting. Very interesting. Just making sure, yep, that's definitely just the one page. Before they headed into the forest, the captain assembled his crew. No one knows what lives in this forest, he warned them. We have our survival suits and our laser blasters. We are trained and equipped for anything we might encounter. But I cannot order you to follow me. I can only ask that, having come this far, you agree to accompany me the last few miles. Many of the crew had served with this captain before, and those who had not knew his reputation. They would go through anything if he asked them. Every one of them agreed to follow him. I do not know what we shall find at the crash site, he admitted, but it may be that the ship was totally destroyed and everyone perished in the impact. It is possible that we have spent over 100 years asleep for nothing, but until we reach the crash site, we won't know. We may discover that our journey has not been in vain, and if we can rescue just one survivor from the stellar fire, then a century of frozen slumber is worth it. And so they set out through the forest. The way was dark and treacherous, with many hazards. Long creepers hung down from the foliage like legs of huge spiders, and some of the plants hissed and spat at the humans as they passed. Sharp, thorny tendrils swiped at them. Wild animals growled from the shadows, but were too afraid to approach these strange creatures who had descended from the sky into their world. At one point, a great chasm opened up across the landscape in front of them. They had to fashion ropes from the hanging creepers to swing themselves across. Night and day were lost beneath the heavy canopy of strange plants and alien vegetation. The crew camped when they grew weary, and the captain set a watch in case the animals hiding in the shadows should get too curious. But the crew got gradually closer to the site where the stellar fire had crashed. The growls of the animals quieted and eventually disappeared altogether. It was as though the animals knew of some greater danger ahead and they didn't dare to follow the humans into it. When the crew had rested, they moved on, all keen to find the stellar fire, and they hoped its passengers and crew. The captain felt anticipation growing inside him as his navigation handset assured him that they were closing in on their destination. He had heard and read so much about this lost ship's captain, and he could not wait to see the great ship she had commanded, and maybe even meet her in person. And then finally, they saw it. This is getting exciting. The great metal hull of the stellar fire appeared through the orange and yellow leaves and stems in front of them. Dappled sunlight shone on its corrugated sides. Multicolored vegetation had grown up through the hull itself. Plants with sharp, narrow leaves and studded with powerful suckers clung to every surface. The forest had claimed the ship for itself. The crew found the main hatchway, and it was partially buried in the ground and matted over with vines and crawling roots. But it had been torn open. Something had already forced its way inside. Okay, now it's getting scary again. Good old Time Lords. Cautiously, the captain led his team through the hatch. It looked like the ship's system was still running on emergency power, as the whole interior was bathed with a dull red glow. They made their way through the shattered remains of corridors and walkways, past storerooms and cargo holds, towards the cryogenic station where the passengers and crew were sleeping. Or so they hoped. They hacked their way through the trees and plants that had grown everywhere. Shadows loomed and deepened around them. They heard something scuttle away from them into the gloom. The captain had been growing increasingly unsettled, but Now he was certain something was following them through the broken remains of the stellar fire. At last, the crew reached the sleeping passengers. They were in vast cryotonic chambers laid out inside frozen caskets preserved for years, sleeping or dead. As the captain moved slowly through the chambers, he realized the terrible truth. Some of the caskets had failed, and the occupants had aged to death in their sleep. Why? Okay. Okay. I know. That was just my mother telling me of other stuff I need to do, like violin lesson, which is being scheduled as a Zoom lesson at 3, and something I need to do for my father's 50th, which I'm really excited about now. I literally have half a month to have that completed. And she also said I can finish reading whenever I wish. We'll finish reading this page, and then I will go grab my water bottle, take a quick drink, and then we'll continue reading. Now, where are we up to? Yeah. Yet other caskets were smashed open and sleep inside gone. Oh, wow. Something's taken them. I reckon something's eaten them. In one casket, a sticky, glutinous mass of green writhed and pulsed. Yeah. As the captain and his crew looked on, it heaved itself over the edge of the smashed lid. It squelched onto the floor. I think it's alive. I don't think I like it. It was like nothing the captain had ever seen before, but thanks to the breathing implants he had taken before the journey, he knew what it was. It was the larvae of an Andromean parasite. Ugh. His implants detailed the creature's life cycle and spelled out the threat it possessed. Without hesitation, the captain drew his laser blaster and opened fire. In moments, the creature was dead. A slimy mess across the floor was a dead, slimy mess across the floor of the chamber. "What was that?" asked one of the members of the rescue team, her voice taunted with the nerves. Okay, now let's just... Page 25. Okay, I can remember that. That's the age of my cousin. Okay, now let's just scuttle out of my room. It's still good. No, it's still on. Damn it. Let's make a cheese. Just a quick snack. No, you don't need to see me eating. I choose my color of my jumper. Just checking on what everybody else is doing. Well, I want to sit up. Sitting is much better. Page 25. No, it's at the end. Okay. Now we are sitting. A withering grub, the captain answered. He told them how the massive maggot-like creature devoured sleeping passengers, absorbing not only their flesh but also their minds, memories, and experiences too. They lay eggs inside us, he explained. Any casted that is not still sealed could contain a Warren, growing and ready to hatch out at any moment. Captain and his crew had no idea how many adult Warren they faced, but the captain knew that their strength lay just as much in numbers as did their laser blasters. They needed to awaken any survivors and escape back to their own ship. Soon the Warren, fearful of losing their food supply, would attack. Captain and his crew moved back to the central area between all the doorways to the cryogenic chambers, and the captain set guards at the entrances of each of them. Pointing to a control panel set into the ship's wall, he ordered his technician to begin the revival process. A scuttling of the Warren seemed to grow louder. The captain imagined dozens of the adult creatures, like huge upright skeletons, massing to attack them. Insects. I meant insects. I know what I meant. Yeah, I don't like insects. Soon the crew would have to fight their way out, and the sooner the better before the Warren were prepared. How long? The captain demanded of his technician. The technician shook his head. The systems are damaged. I can prime the revival process to start, but the revival system on each caskets aren't working. We need the ship's main computer to be trigger the awakening. Captain immediately saw the problem. The computer will need a command access code, he said. The technician nodded. There's only one person who will know the ship's code. It's Captain. We have to revive her somehow. Provided she hasn't been eaten, that is. Or been laid eggs in. We have to find her first, the captain said. The ship's officers were not kept of the passengers. They would be sleeping in a sealed compartment closer to the main control of deck. If the Warren had not already reached them, that was. The blast of a laser split the silence. A wounded Warren scuttled back from one of the chamber doorways. It was obviously now that the captain and his crew would have to fight their way out of the area they were in. Leaving half of his team to guard the sleeping passengers, the captain assembled the others and gave them their orders. First challenge was to escape from the cryogenic section of the ship's and into the main ship. There were Warren at every doorway now, lurking in the shadows, biding their time. There was no doubt they would strike when they could. One young man ventured too close to a doorway, and the long forelimbs of a Warren snaked out of the shadows, wrapped around the man, and began dragging him away. Oh, isn't that a scene in, most horror movies? There'll be creatures hiding in the dark, one person will get too close to the doorway, and then, yoink, you're coming with me now, and pulled into the darkness, screaming. Fingernail scratches all the way down the floor. as the child or human or woman, as the person tries to escape from their reach. Isn't that classic horror movie scene? Like, oh my god. Another classic horror movie scene. They split up. Seriously, the people in horror movies and whatnot have never seen a horror movie and do not understand what they should and shouldn't do. And it's always the pretty ones that go first. Why? Always the pretty ones that go first. I don't understand that. Okay, back to this. Where was I? Yeah. Only the quick response of his comrades saved him. Oh, good. He is saved. One grabbed his legs while another blasted the Warren's body until it released its grip. On the captain's order, the rescue team opened fire again, blasting into the shadows and driving the monstrous creatures back. They scurried away, screeching in pain and fear and anger. The journey through the ship was a red-lit nightmare. Barbed plants whipped at them as they ran. Branches blocked their way. Ivy and creepers laced the floor and threatened to snare and trip them at every step, and Warren waited in the shadows. They reached out any stranglers, hoping to pick. Also, let's just admire this. It's beautiful. Hoping to pick them off. Yeah, like they always pick them off one by one, but the rescuers fired at any movement and shadows. They seemed too deep and dark, and any hint of the creatures They came across the whole section of the ship's floor that had been slowly ripped away from the forest and forced its way inside the stellar fire. The captain led the way across, clambering up the trunks of a tree and along its branches until he could drop down onto the other side, his feet clanging against the metal floor. Tentacle ripped out of the doorway and wrapped itself around his ankle, pulling him down. As he fell, he jabbed his laser blaster into the dark shape that was dragging him across the floor. The sound of the shot echoed around the metal structure and was only drowned out by a piercing shriek of a dying Warren. At every corner they hesitated, checking for the creatures, then moved cautiously on. At every dark doorway they glanced oppressively ahead, expecting a furious Warren to hurl itself at them. With every step they grew closer to their goal, the forward section of the ship, where they would find the control deck and the crew's cryogenic chamber, and they hoped the ship's sleeping captain. The journey seemed to take forever, but they finally stood in front of the door to an official-looking chamber. It had to be the crew's. Each and every one of them held their breath as the captain activated the opening mechanism and the door slid slowly open. The door groaned and protested, grown stubborn with age, like old people, like older people, and the branches that had forced their way around and through it. It opened just enough for the captain to force his way through and into the chamber beyond. caskets inside were bathed in a pale blue light, a contrast to the blood red that had lit the rest of the ship. There we go. Let me just changing position for better lighting. And I'm tired of sitting now. It was cold and stark by comparison. I think that's meant to say dark. I don't know. I know stark in German can mean annoying and strong. Cold and strong. Cold and annoying. Anything would work there. The captain walked across the chamber, taking in the row of glass-topped caskets in front of him. He let out a sigh of relief, his breath misting in the air. Ooh, it's cold in there. Oh, wait. It literally said that, but like, it's that cold. Wow. The caskets appeared intact. It doesn't look like as if the Warren have not got this far into the ship, the technician said. The air is colder here. This chamber has not been disturbed. Yes, that is correct. The captain was already walking along the row of caskets looking for the ship's sleeping captain, but could they wake her when they found her? One casket stood apart from the others, slightly raised as benefits of the senior officer on a ship. The captain knelt beside this casket. He wiped his gloved hand across the glass surface of its lid. It was thick and with frost, but he managed to clear a space to see down into the casket, to see a woman sleeping inside. She looked so peaceful, so still, so beautiful. Okay, it's sounding like Snow White now. One look at her face glistening with a sheen of ice, and the captain knew he had found the woman he was looking for. He had to save her. What's he gonna do? True love's kiss? Or what if he does though? Suddenly he saw a movement. For a moment he thought she was waking, that her eyelids had fluttered impossibly into life. Then he realized that he had seen a reflection in the glass, the movement of the creature behind him. A yell of warning came at the same moment as the captain realized his mistake. He threw himself sideways, and the Warren's tentacles sliced through the air where he had been kneeling just seconds before. The creature's tentacles clattered against the glass casket, sending a shower of frosted particles that hung in the air as an icy cloud. The Warren turned back to the captain. He saw his own face reflected in his eyes. Reflection now, distorted in the huge eyes of the creature. It lunged at him once more. He raised his gun, and there was a brilliant flash of light. The Warren was blasted backwards, dead before it hit the ground. "Can you wake her?" the captain asked the technician, who was busying himself with the casket's controls. "I can shut down the cryogenics and restore her body to its correct temperature," the technician told him, "but without the command code to activate the revival process, it is up to the woman herself to begin to breathe. Now all we can do is wait." So what, you're gonna do CPR? You're gonna do CPR? That would be pretty cool though. So they all waited. The ice in the casket began to thaw. Cold mist rose from inside. Slowly the frosted sheen on the woman's face dissolved to water and ran like tears down her cheeks, but her eyes remained closed. She did not draw breath. "Warren!" a voice called from the doorway. that the captain barely heard. All his attention was focused on the woman laying asleep in the casket. All his thoughts was about her frozen beauty. "Now," the technician whispered as he checked the controls. "She has to breathe now. If not, she will never wake." With the sound of a blast of fire echoing around the room, and the screeches of the wounded and dying Warren ringing in his ears, the captain leaned down into the casket. He pressed his lips against the woman's and breathed his own breath into her lungs, willing her to wake up. Nothing. He tried again. The kiss of life. And this time, the woman's chest heaved in sudden, startled response. "See? I knew it! I knew it!" Okay. He opened and drew in a great rasping breaths. She opened her eyes and she drew great rasping breaths of the frosty air. The captain helped her out of the casket. He shrugged out of his jacket and draped it over her shoulders to keep her warm while she recovered from her long, cold sleep. Then, as she sat shivering, he explained who he and his crew were, why they had come, and what they had found. As the two captains spoke, the technician worked at the console, accessing the main computer. By the time he was ready, the newly woken captain had recovered. She keyed in the command code, and she had learned so many years ago, back before her long journey had begun. Behind them, the other caskets slowly started to thaw. Their lids sprang open, helped by the processes activated by the command code. The sleepers inside took their first tentative breaths. Deep within the ship, the caskets in the other cryogenic chambers were now opening as well. Slowly but surely, the temperature in the crew's chamber began to rise. Slowly but surely, the stealth fire was coming back to life. Yay! The remaining sleepers awoke, and the captain and his crew armed them with laser blasters from the ship's armory. Together, the two crews fought their way through the Warren, and the Warren retreated. They were outnumbered and knew they would not stand against the blast of fire. The two captains led the way out of the ship. The woman who had slept for so very long and the man who had come to wake her. Together, they led their people, crew, passengers, and rescuers out of the forest. It was a slow journey back to the rescue ship, but their spirits were high as they walked through the trees. The planet's distant sun slowly rose above the forest's canopy. Light shone down, pale and filtered, for the sleepers of the stellar fire. This was a new dawn, a new beginning. As they reached the rescue ship, the woman turned to the captain who had woken her. She took his hands in hers. "Thank you," she said, and his smile was as beautiful to her as her sleeping frozen beauty had been to him. The end. Why do I feel like they're gonna start dating or something like that? Okay. Ooh, Cinderella in the magic box. The magic box is the TARDIS. Yes. Yes. And that's actually Cinderella. Woo! This is cool. This is cool. This is so cool. I want to read on with you lot, but maybe tomorrow. I will write myself a reminder. Tomorrow we'll read Cinderella and the Magic Box. Now let's get you back up there. Back up there. Okay.